In the last 12 months, content creation has completely changed my life. And I want to talk about how that unfolded in the hopes that it might help you on your journey. At 27, I was homeless. And at 34, I now have 940,000 followers and a business that's on track to make $1 million this year. And I would have never got from there to here without content creation. And it's taken me 22 months to go from 0 to 940,000 followers. And it's easy to look at that and think, oh wow, that's quick. But if we look back far enough, then you can see I've actually been trying to make it in the content game for a long time. In my early 20s, I was a singer-songwriter, so I used to post videos of me singing to get attention to my music. Then I got vocal damage and I had to pack in the music thing. I used to be a very fast runner, so I started a running channel very briefly. That completely flopped. I started a cooking account, completely flopped. I started an account on YouTube reviewing books. That actually did really well, but I just didn't enjoy it, so I packed it in. But along the way, I started helping other people with their social growth, friends and family, and I just got more and more and more interested in it and fascinated by it. It felt like beneath the surface, things were starting to make more sense. Then a few years ago, when I was working at a startup, I managed to grow their Instagram account from like 4,000 followers to 250,000 followers in the space of 5 months. And that kind of felt like validation that I was starting to really understand how this stuff worked. Then when I saw the rise of TikTok, it reminded me of how I hadn't capitalized on the early days of Instagram. And so in 2021, I started a TikTok account all about philosophy. And then in a few months, I got that to around 30,000 followers. But the whole way along, my attempts at making content were not just to make content for content's sake, although I love making content. The goal was to reach financial freedom, to be able to work for myself and to not have a boss telling me what to do. So even when I had this philosophy account that was working and growing, it didn't feel quite right because I couldn't see how I was going to monetize it so I could move away from startup land and build something of my own. But then in the summer of 2020, I was forced to make a decision. The startup I was working at could no longer get funds. Everyone's hours were cut by 50%. And I found myself with a lot of free time and not as much money as I was used to. I started looking for jobs a little bit, but nothing really connected. But I was gonna keep pushing, keep looking for a job. And then I had this interview with a recruiter. And he stops me at one point, interrupts me and says, hey, I've only said this 2 other times in my entire 20-year career. I've interviewed thousands and thousands of people. You shouldn't have a job, you should work for yourself. I kind of just batted it off and was like, whatever, I want the job, give me the job. But then after the interview, I just sat there and I couldn't get his words out of my mind. Maybe it's true, maybe I am meant to work for myself. So then I thought about what my strengths were. And at that point, I'd been working in startups as head of growth, head of marketing for 6 years. And so I was like, cool, I have this skill set already. Why don't I just start talking about that? So I started an account talking about marketing, copywriting, advertising, branding. And within 30 days, I had 30,000 followers. But at the end of those 30 days, I was completely burned out and I stopped posting until the end of the year. Fast forward to January 2023, and I go all in on my content creation business. At the time, I was still talking about marketing and advertising and branding and copywriting. And so I started an agency around that, helping businesses with their copywriting and their marketing. I did this for around 6 months. In month 1, I made nothing and I really didn't have a lot of savings. So it was extremely stressful. Month 2, I made a little bit, but now it's looking like I won't be able to pay the rent the next month. Toward the end of the month, I get 2 high ticket deals that bring in around, I think it was $14,000 or something like that. And I start posting content again in order to get more clients and more stability. I start doing that all the way up until the end of May. And as the months go on, I start gathering more and more clients in order to ensure I have enough revenue coming in so I never have another January where I have no revenue. And the stress of it was causing me panic attacks, basically. I have ADHD and trying to juggle with all these different clients that had huge demands every day wanting my attention, and then trying to also get new clients at the same time by creating cool, innovative, creative content just felt like too much. I couldn't handle it. And I asked a bunch of mentors what they thought I should do. Would it be okay if I pivoted into something else and left the agency behind? And they all told me I was stupid. We're talking like 8-figure, 9-figure entrepreneurs telling me like, you're stupid if you do this. So I felt very stressed about making a change, but I couldn't see how to make that work for me. So I packed it in, and then I pivoted into social growth content. I was already obsessed with it. I'd been doing masterminds behind the scenes with lots of awesome creators and saw the positive impact it had had on my accounts. And I just found that this was the thing that fueled me. It was the thing that fascinated me. I cared way more about it than copywriting or marketing at large. And so I wanted to focus in on that. I did that. Then I started a community around social growth and started getting revenue from that community. Then I added a course and a boot camp and one-to-one things and different services and products that scaled my business. And at the same time, I'm getting better and better and better at making content. But May, June and July, I made barely anything. I think May, because I was pivoting, I made a couple $100. June, July were about the same, maybe a little less. And at this point, I was around 80,000 followers. So my life still hadn't changed. I was still basically surviving off of savings. And then all of a sudden, things started to really click. I really started to understand social growth at a much deeper level. I started growing extremely quickly on TikTok. So middle of 2022, sure, I'm growing socially, but I'm still making barely any money. Fast forward to June 2023. That's when I first have a video pop off on Instagram. At that point, I could barely break 3,000 views on Instagram. I wasn't getting any business from there. I didn't like it, I didn't use it. And the only reason I was posting on there was because a big creator friend, I think he had like 10 million followers, was like, do not stop. One day something will click and it will work. Because Instagram is significantly harder at the start than it is later on. So it starts to snowball. So that video pops off, and then that was the catalyst for the whole account changing. Like overnight, video after video started working. Between June and January 1st, I went from 1,500 followers to 230,000 followers. And now my business was doing pretty damn well. Then at the start of January, I do a 30-day launch for a boot camp. This was going to be a much higher ticket offer than anything I'd offered before, $4,500 per person. And the goal was to break $100,000 by the end of the month, at which point the boot camp would start. It was an extremely stressful month. I documented the whole thing on Instagram if you want to go check it out. Basically, the whole month I was self-sabotaging. I had a coach who was telling me to send multiple emails a day. I sent 2 the whole month. They were telling me to post 5 to 10 stories per day. I didn't start doing stories till like the last 10 days. They were telling me to do sales videos. I only did 2 in the whole month. I was just sabotaging the whole way along and getting more and more stressed, because to me, if I couldn't show the benefit of social growth to other people and their businesses, then they would no longer trust me. So it felt like a lot was riding on it, and I was doing this publicly, so I was getting more and more stressed. And then one day I realized the obvious, which was I wasn't doing any of the things I needed to in order to make this work. And then I realized I was not doing those things because I was self-sabotaging. I had limiting beliefs. I had stories that were trying to keep me down here. And anytime I started trying to go up, the vehicle would start to shake and come apart, and I'd go back down to a place that felt comfortable. So I needed to mentally allow myself to break through that plateau, that barrier, and actually do the things I needed to do. So it was probably with 4 or 5 days left in the month where everything started to change. I did everything I needed to do, and most of the revenue came in that period, and I hit my goal. 100,000 followers in a single month. This is from someone who had once been homeless, someone whose parents had basically lost hope in. So to get from that place to $100,000 in a month was, I cannot tell you how relieved I felt. I think that was the emotion, relief of, I finally felt a little bit of safety. It finally felt like I didn't have to run so much to get away from the possibility of being homeless ever again. I had that buffer. Yeah, I was so proud of myself for that. But ultimately that came because I trusted that if I stuck with content creation long enough, that it would result in something like that, because it's so high leverage. When you post on social, you get access to millions and millions of people, you get access to their attention. And if you do a good enough job, then they will want to work with you. So I believed that for many years in many different ways, whether it was the music Instagram or the cooking YouTube or the running YouTube or the philosophy accounts, the book review accounts, whatever it was. The thing driving it was a belief that there was massive upside to be had here with something that I love to do. And I completely get why my friends, my family didn't believe me and probably thought I was a bit of a bum. But it is nice to look back on my 20s, on all those failed attempts, and realize, like, sure, the outcome might not have been there, but your gut feel about where you should have been spending your attention was right. From January 2024 to end of June 2024, I've gained about 470,000 followers on Instagram, and I've gained about 60,000 on TikTok. But the real growth has been behind the scenes in my business. As I proved out how much I knew about social growth by growing my accounts, I got more and more attention from big businesses like Red Bull, Nivea, Instagram, and from huge 9-figure, 10-figure entrepreneurs. And at the same time as being able to work with huge brands and people like that, I also was selling more of my course and more of my community. And that kind of brings us to today. And so yeah, content creation has changed my life. It's certainly not been easy. I've pretty much worked every day since December 26th. I took Christmas Day off, and then every day since then I've been working. And so it's not always 12 to 14 hours. Sometimes on a Saturday or a Sunday, I work significantly less than that. But I'd say like most days are like 12 to 14 hours. And most weeks are somewhere between 70 and 100 hours, depending on the week. I definitely have more stress than I've ever had before because I'm trying to build something big. I'm trying to build the Harvard of social growth, and that requires a huge amount of effort. And then you have to learn so many things and deal with so many things that you otherwise wouldn't have, right? You are the accountant, you are the marketer, you are the salesperson, you are the operator, you are the product person, you are the executive assistant, you are the customer service person, you're everything. And that's extremely stressful. And I've had to learn how to manage and how to hire good people. How much should you pay them? I want to pay people really well. But also, I have to have a business that's profitable or it won't exist. So how do you balance those things of like wanting to do really well by people and also needing it to be a sensible business decision? How do you navigate that? Then you have to navigate plateaus. On TikTok, I've gained maybe 60,000 followers this year, and that's really low for me. And the consistency hasn't been there. So before I would consistently get great views. Now most of the followers come from the odd video performing really well, and then the rest doing, somewhere between 10 and 50,000 views, which is really low for me. So trying to grapple with the mindset aspect of content creation has been a challenge, right? Like, how do you still enjoy content creation when it gets hard, when the results aren't coming? But ultimately, I'm in a really great place, and I would take all of those challenges if it means I get to keep doing what I love, which is making content and teaching others how to make great content. I would much rather all of that stuff than to ever go back into a job. And I just love the freedom and the creative outlet that this allows me. And I'm also excited for the future of like where this can possibly go and how much I can possibly learn. Like, there's just so much more for me to learn. I know I can get so much better at this, at script writing, at editing, at hook writing, at ideating, at videography, at all of it, at teaching other people how to do it. And I'm just so excited for all of that stuff. And I'm so proud of where I've come from and where we've got to. And yeah, if you've watched any of my short form content on TikTok or Instagram and left a comment or a like or anything, thank you so much. It means the world to me. It's been part of how I've got to where I've got to. So yeah, and I am very excited to continue to give back and share everything I'm learning along the way. Peace.